"I need a doctor. Please, somebody help." The scream ripped through the cabin at 30,000 feet. Marcus Reed's hands were shaking not from fear, but from the weight of $15,000 cash pressed against his chest, money that wouldn't save his dying son. And now this woman, this stranger in seat 2A, was turning blue right in front of him. He had two choices: stay invisible and protect the last hope he had, or risk everything to save a life that wasn't his son's. What he didn't know: the woman dying in his arms held the one secret that could change everything. This wasn't chance. This was his late wife reaching from beyond the grave. Before we dive into this incredible story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's get into what happened on that flight. Your son has 3 months, Mr. Reed. Maybe less. Marcus Reed heard those words exactly 47 hours before he boarded Flight 447 to New York. Dr. Patterson had said them quietly, clinically, like he was reading a grocery list instead of pronouncing a death sentence on an 8-year-old boy. Marcus had just nodded. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Didn't do anything except squeeze Ethan's small hand tighter and walk out of that Phoenix hospital like a ghost. Now he was sitting in seat 24C economy class with every dollar he owned stuffed into a worn leather wallet. $15,000. 3 years of working double shifts as a warehouse supervisor, skipping meals, selling everything that wasn't nailed down. His late wife Grace's wedding ring gone, her car gone, the small house they'd bought together remortgaged until the bank said no more. All of it for a number that was still $165,000 short. The plane was half empty. Red-eye flights usually were. Marcus stared out the window at the lights of Phoenix disappearing below, and all he could think was, "I'm failing you, Grace. I'm failing our boy." Ethan's face flashed in his mind. Those big brown eyes, Grace's eyes looking up at him from the hospital bed. "Daddy, am I gonna die like Mommy?" Marcus had lied. "No, buddy, never. I promise." But promises didn't pay for pediatric heart transplants. Promises didn't bump you up waiting lists. Promises didn't do a damn thing except make the truth hurt worse. He pulled out his phone, looked at the last photo he'd taken. Ethan in his hospital gown giving a thumbs up, trying so hard to be brave. The boy's lips had a blue tint even in the picture. Hypoxic heart failure, the doctors called it. Not enough oxygen getting through. Every day, Ethan's heart worked harder and got weaker. Marcus closed his eyes, tried to pray, but he'd stopped believing in God the day Grace died from a brain aneurysm on her way to pick Ethan up from school. She was 32 years old, healthy, happy, and then just gone. No warning, no goodbye. One phone call, and Marcus Reed's entire world had collapsed. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of being a single father, working himself to exhaustion, watching his son slowly inherit what felt like a family curse. First the mother, now the child. What kind of God did that? "Excuse me, sir? Would you like something to drink?" The flight attendant's voice pulled him back. Young woman, kind eyes, probably new to the job. Marcus shook his head. "No, thank you." She smiled and moved on with her cart. Marcus shifted in his seat, tried to get comfortable, but the wallet in his jacket kept digging into his ribs. $15,000 in cash. He'd withdrawn it all that morning, couldn't risk leaving it in a bank account that might get frozen or tied up. The hospital in New York wanted $20,000 up front just to schedule the surgery. He was $5,000 short of the deposit, $5,000 short of even getting in the door. The plan, if you could call it that, was to show up at Mount Sinai with cash in hand and beg. Literally beg. Get on his knees if he had to. Offer to work it off, sign over his future, whatever it took. Dr. Richardson, the cardiac surgeon Ethan needed, was supposed to be the best in the country, maybe the best in the world. People flew their kids in from Dubai, from Singapore, from places Marcus couldn't even pronounce. And here he was, with 15 grand, and hope built on desperation. The plane leveled off. The cabin lights dimmed. Around him, passengers settled in to sleep: business travelers, tourists, people whose biggest worry was probably a delayed connection or lost luggage. Marcus envied them with an intensity that felt like poison. He was about to close his own eyes when he heard it. A gasp, sharp and startled. Then a voicemail: urgent. Ma'am, are you okay? Marcus sat up. 2 rows ahead on the left side near first-class people were standing. A flight attendant rushed past him, her face pale. I need the medical kit, now. Another voice, female, louder. Is there a doctor on board? Please, we need a doctor. Marcus didn't think. His body moved on autopilot, 3 years of paramedic training, kicking in before his brain could stop him. He was out of his seat and moving forward before he consciously decided to do it. The first-class cabin was chaos. A woman had collapsed halfway out of her seat, body convulsing. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. Expensive business suit, gray hair perfectly styled. Her face was turning purple. Lips, blue eyes rolled back. The flight attendant was panicking. Oh God, what do I do? Marcus pushed through. I'm a paramedic. Move. Not entirely true anymore. He'd let his certification lapse 2 years ago when he couldn't afford the renewal, but close enough. He dropped to his knees beside the woman, fingers immediately going to her neck. No pulse. She's in cardiac arrest, he said loud and clear. I need that medical kit right now. And you. He pointed to a male passenger frozen in shock. Start compressions. 30 chest compressions, 2 breaths. You know CPR. The man nodded, face white. Then do it. The flight attendant arrived with the kit, hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. Marcus ripped it open, found the portable defibrillator. Thank God. He'd seen too many flights without one. Clear. He placed the paddles. The woman's body jerked. The monitor showed a flat line, then a weak blip. Again. He shocked her a second time. This time, the rhythm caught, irregular, but there. Her chest started rising on its own. Come on, lady, Marcus muttered, checking her airway. Don't you dare die on me. He tilted her head back, made sure her tongue wasn't blocking her throat, felt for breath. Weak but present. Her color was starting to come back, purple, fading to pale. The man doing compressions was crying. Is she going to be okay? She's breathing, Marcus said. That's a start. Someone tell the pilot we need an emergency landing. This woman needs a hospital. Sir, we're over Nevada right now, the flight attendant said. The captain says we can make an emergency descent to Las Vegas or continue to New York. We're about 40 minutes from being equidistant. Marcus looked down at the woman. Her eyes fluttered open, confused, terrified. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. Hey, stay with me, Marcus said gently. You're okay. You had a cardiac event, but you're going to be fine. What's your name? She mouthed something. He leaned closer. Victoria, she whispered. Victoria Hale. Something about that name tugged at Marcus's memory, but he couldn't place it. Okay, Victoria, I'm Marcus. You're safe. Just breathe for me nice and slow. She grabbed his hand with surprising strength. Her eyes locked onto his, and there was something in them. Recognition. Fear, he couldn't tell. We should continue to New York, the flight attendant said. There's a full cardiac team waiting at JFK. Marcus nodded. Keep her stable. Oxygen if you have it. Monitor her pulse every 5 minutes. Any change, you come get me. He stood up, legs shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. The first-class cabin was full of stunned passengers, all staring at him like he'd just performed a miracle. He hadn't. He'd done basic emergency medicine. But to them, he was a hero. To him, he was just a man who delayed getting to his dying son by however long this had cost. Thank you, the male passenger said, still crying. You saved her life. Marcus didn't respond. He walked back to his seat in economy, sat down and put his head in his hands. The wallet was still digging into his ribs. $15,000. $165,000 short. And now he'd just spent 20 minutes of his life saving a stranger instead of focusing on Ethan. What the hell was wrong with him? He pulled out his phone again, looked at Ethan's picture. "I'm sorry, buddy," he whispered to the screen. "I'm so sorry." The rest of the flight passed in a blur. Marcus couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw two faces, Ethan's getting bluer by the day, and Victoria Hale's returning from death with something like recognition in her eyes. Why had she looked at him like that? When the plane finally touched down at JFK, Marcus grabbed his single carry-on bag and headed for the exit. He'd wasted enough time. Mount Sinai was waiting. Dr. Richardson was waiting. Ethan was waiting back in Phoenix with Marcus's sister Jenny, who'd taken 3 days off work she couldn't afford to lose just to watch him. The clock was ticking. But as Marcus walked through the jetway, he heard his name. Mr. Reed, Marcus Reed. He turned. A man in an expensive suit was walking toward him, flanked by two others. Behind them, being pushed in a wheelchair by a flight attendant, was Victoria Hale. She looked terrible, pale, weak, hooked up to a portable oxygen tank, but she was alive. And she was staring right at Marcus. "Mr. Reed," the man said. "I'm Robert Chen, Ms. Hale's attorney. She'd like to speak with you." Marcus shook his head. "Look, I'm glad she's okay, but I really need to go. I have—" "Please," Victoria said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just 5 minutes. That's all I ask." Something in her tone stopped him. It wasn't a request. It was a plea. Marcus checked his watch. He had an appointment at Mount Sinai in 3 hours. 5 minutes. What difference would 5 minutes make? "Okay," he said. 5 minutes. They took him to a private room in the airport's medical facility. Victoria was transferred to a proper wheelchair, given water, checked by a paramedic who'd been waiting. Through it all, she never took her eyes off Marcus. When they were finally alone, just Marcus, Victoria, and the attorney, she spoke. "You're Marcus Reed," she said. "Married to Grace Reed née Holloway. Mother's maiden name Sullivan. You have a son, Ethan, 8 years old, born March 15th, currently in end-stage heart failure." Marcus went cold. "How do you know that?" Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Because Grace made me a promise 3 years ago, and I made her one in return." "Grace." Marcus took a step back. "You knew my wife." "I did," Victoria said. "Not well, but in the way that matters most. Your wife saved my son's life, Mr. Reed. Not medically, he died anyway. But she saved his soul. And mine." Marcus felt like the floor was tilting. "I don't understand." Victoria reached out a shaking hand. "Sit down, please. This is going to take more than 5 minutes." He sat, and Victoria Hale began to talk. 3 years ago, my son Daniel was dying, 16 years old. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. We'd tried everything: chemotherapy, radiation, bone marrow transplant. Nothing worked. The cancer just kept coming back stronger each time. We ended up at Phoenix Memorial for experimental treatment. It was our last hope. Her voice cracked. "I was a terrible mother during that time. I was CEO of Hale Industries. You've probably never heard of it. We do medical supply manufacturing. I was so consumed with work, with trying to control something, anything, that I barely spent time with Daniel. I was always on my phone, always in meetings, always choosing the company over my dying son." Tears were streaming down her face now. Grace was his primary nurse. She worked the night shift, and she would sit with Daniel when he couldn't sleep. She'd talk to him about her own son, about her husband, about life and hope, and stupid little things that made him smile. She was there when I wasn't. Marcus's throat was tight. He'd known Grace had worked with pediatric cancer patients. She'd come home sometimes with stories that broke her heart. But she'd never mentioned Daniel Hale. "The night before Daniel died," Victoria continued, "Grace sat with both of us. Daniel was barely conscious, but Grace held his hand and told him it was okay to let go, that he'd fought hard enough, that his mother loved him more than anything in this world, even if she'd forgotten how to show it." Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper. And then she turned to me and said, "I see you, Victoria. I see you breaking. I've been where you are terrified of losing what matters most. Promise me something. If anything ever happens to me, if my family ever needs help, you'll be there for them the way I'm here for you now." Marcus couldn't breathe. "She said that—" "She made me swear it," Victoria said. "And I did. I promised." The next morning, Daniel passed away. I went back to my company, buried myself in work again, tried to forget. And then 6 months later, I saw Grace's obituary. Brain aneurysm, survived by husband Marcus and son Ethan. She looked at him with devastated eyes. "I broke my promise, Mr. Reed. I was so deep in my grief I couldn't face reaching out. I told myself you were fine, that Grace's family was managing. But I knew, and I did nothing." Marcus stood up, pacing. This was insane. This woman had known Grace had made some kind of deathbed promise, and now she was what, tracking him down. "How did you know I'd be on that flight?" he demanded. "I didn't," Victoria said simply. "I've been having heart problems for months. Stress-induced cardiomyopathy, my doctors called it. Broken heart syndrome, literally. I was flying to New York for a consultation with a specialist. The collapse wasn't planned, Mr. Reed. It was divine intervention." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Is that what you're going to tell me, that God put me on that plane to save you?" "I don't know what I believe," Victoria said. "But I know this: you saved my life tonight. The same way your wife saved my son's spirit. And now I'm going to keep the promise I made to her." Marcus stopped pacing. "What are you talking about?" Victoria nodded to her attorney, who pulled out a folder. "Ethan needs a heart transplant," she said. "Surgery, anti-rejection medications, recovery aftercare. The total cost is approximately $180,000. You currently have $15,000 in cash, no insurance, and no way to pay for it." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "How do you know that?" "Because I've been looking for you for 3 months, Mr. Reed. Ever since I saw Ethan's name on a transplant waiting list that crossed my desk. Hale Industries supplies half the cardiac equipment in this country. I have access to information most people don't." She leaned forward. "I'm going to pay for everything. The surgery, the medications, the recovery, all of it. I'm keeping my promise to Grace." Marcus felt like he'd been punched. "No. Mr. Reed, no," he said again, louder. "I don't need your charity. I don't need your guilt money. I'll figure it out myself." "Your son doesn't have time for you to figure it out," Victoria said bluntly. "According to his medical records, Ethan has less than 3 months. The average wait time for a pediatric heart transplant is 6 months to 2 years. Even if a heart becomes available tomorrow, you don't have the money for the surgery. Your pride is going to kill your son." The words hit Marcus like bullets. He wanted to scream at her, tell her she was wrong, tell her to go to hell. But she wasn't wrong. "Why?" he asked, voice breaking. "Why would you do this for us? You don't even know us." Victoria's eyes were full of tears again. "Because Grace knew you, and she loved you enough to make a stranger promise to save you. How can I do any less?" Marcus sat down hard, put his head in his hands. Thought about Ethan in that hospital bed, trying so hard to be brave. Thought about Grace sitting with a dying teenager and his broken mother offering comfort in the darkness. Thought about the $15,000 pressed against his chest that would never ever be enough. "I can't," his voice cracked. "I can't just take your money." "You're not taking it," Victoria said gently. "You're accepting a promise kept. There's a difference." Robert Chen cleared his throat. "Ms. Hale has already contacted Mount Sinai. Dr. Richardson is expecting you both tomorrow morning. All financial arrangements have been made. Your son will be moved to New York as soon as he's stable for transport." Marcus looked up at Victoria, really looked at her, saw the grief etched into her face, the exhaustion, the desperate need to make amends for a promise broken. She wasn't doing this for him. She was doing it for Grace, for Daniel, for herself. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." Victoria exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for 3 years. "Thank you." "No," Marcus said, standing up. "Thank you. For keeping your promise. For honoring my wife. For—" His voice broke again. "For saving my son." They sat in silence for a long moment. Two broken people brought together by death and desperation, and a promise made in the darkness of a hospital room. Finally, Victoria spoke again. "There's one more thing you should know, Mr. Reed. The reason I was flying to New York, the specialist I was seeing. It's Dr. Richardson. Same surgeon, same hospital. Grace isn't just keeping her promise through me." She smiled through her tears. "She's making sure I keep mine." Marcus didn't believe in God, didn't believe in miracles, didn't believe in divine intervention or fate or any of it. But standing in that airport medical room, looking at a woman who'd come back from death to keep a promise to his dead wife, he almost wanted to. "Let's go save my son," he said. Victoria nodded. "Let's go save them both." Marcus didn't sleep that night. How could he? He sat in a hotel room. Victoria's assistant had arranged, staring at his phone, trying to process what had just happened. Every few minutes he'd pull up the messages from his sister Jenny back in Phoenix. "Ethan's asking for you. He's scared. His oxygen levels dropped again tonight. Doctors stabilized him, but Marcus, he's getting worse. Call me when you land, please." Marcus had called, heard Ethan's weak voice on the other end saying, "Daddy, did you find the doctor? Am I gonna get better?" And for the first time in 3 years, Marcus had been able to say yes and mean it. But now, alone in the darkness, doubt crept in. Who was Victoria Hale, really? Why was she doing this? People didn't just hand out hundreds of thousands of dollars because of some promise to a dead nurse. There had to be a catch. There was always a catch. At 6 in the morning, his phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Reed, this is Dr. Richardson's office. We'd like to see you at 9. Ms. Hale will meet you there." "I'll be there," Marcus said. He showered, put on the only clean shirt he'd packed, and stood in front of the mirror. He looked like hell. 3 days of stubble eyes, bloodshot from no sleep, the weight of 3 years of grief carved into every line of his face. Grace wouldn't recognize him. The man she'd married had been younger, lighter still, believed good things could happen. That man was gone. The taxi ride to Mount Sinai took 30 minutes through morning traffic. Marcus watched the city pass by, all those people rushing to work, grabbing coffee, living normal lives where their children weren't dying. He envied them, hated them a little too. The hospital was massive glass and steel reaching toward the sky. Marcus had researched it obsessively for months, read every article about Dr. Richardson, watched videos of his speeches at medical conferences. The man was a legend. 87% success rate on pediatric heart transplants, numbers no one else in the country could match. And now Marcus was walking through those doors, not as a desperate father with empty pockets, but as a patient with full financial backing. It felt surreal. Victoria was already in the waiting room when he arrived. She looked better than she had last night, color back in her face, but still fragile. She stood when she saw him, extended her hand. "Mr. Reed, thank you for coming." "It's Marcus," he said, shaking her hand. "And I should be thanking you." "We'll thank each other when Ethan's healthy," she said. A nurse appeared, young woman with kind eyes. "Ms. Hale, Dr. Richardson is ready for you both." They followed her through corridors that smelled of antiseptic and floor polish, past rooms where other families waited for their own miracles. Marcus tried not to look at them, tried not to see his own desperation reflected back. Dr. Richardson's office was on the 7th floor, corner view of the city. The man himself was younger than Marcus expected, maybe 50, with gray at his temples and steady hands that had saved hundreds of lives. "Ms. Hale, good to see you again," he said, standing. Then he turned to Marcus. "And you must be Mr. Reed. I've reviewed Ethan's files. Please sit." They sat. Marcus's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Dr. Richardson pulled up images on his computer screen. Your son's echocardiograms show severe dilated cardiomyopathy with an ejection fraction of 18%. To put that in perspective, a healthy heart is between 50 and 70%. Ethan's heart is barely pumping enough blood to keep him alive. Marcus nodded. He'd heard this before. Different doctors, same devastating numbers. The good news, Dr. Richardson continued, is that he's a strong candidate for transplant. His tissue type is relatively common, which improves his chances of finding a match. The bad news is the waiting list. Pediatric hearts are scarce. We have children who've been waiting 18 months, some longer. How long does Ethan have? Marcus asked, though he knew the answer. Based on his current decline rate, 8 to 12 weeks before we're looking at mechanical support. A ventricular assist device, essentially an artificial heart pump. It's invasive, risky, and would be a bridge to transplant, not a solution. Marcus felt Victoria's hand on his arm. A gesture of comfort from a stranger who wasn't really a stranger anymore. What are his chances? Marcus asked. If we do everything right, if a heart becomes available, what are we looking at? Dr. Richardson met his eyes. I don't like to give percentages because every case is unique. But if we can get Ethan a heart in the next 2 months, and the surgery goes well, I'd say 70 to 80% chance of 5-year survival. Maybe better. He's young, otherwise healthy, good support system. 70 to 80%, not a guarantee, not even close. But better than the 0% Marcus had been staring at 3 days ago. When can you bring him here? Dr. Richardson asked. I can have him transported tomorrow, Victoria said. Medical flight, full cardiac team on board. Whatever he needs. Dr. Richardson nodded. Good. We'll get him settled. Run our own tests, get him officially listed. Mr. Reed, I want you to understand something. The waiting is the hardest part. You'll have good days and bad days. Days where you think a heart is coming, and days where you lose hope entirely. My job is to be ready when that call comes. Your job is to be strong for your son. I can do that, Marcus said, though he wasn't sure it was true. After the meeting, Victoria and Marcus stood in the hallway, neither quite sure what to say. I need to go back to Phoenix, Marcus said finally. Need to be there when they transport him. Of course, Victoria said. My assistant will arrange the flight. Whatever you need. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. Why are you doing all this? And don't tell me it's just the promise. There's something else. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Walk with me. They took the elevator down, walked out into a small courtyard garden behind the hospital. Patients in wheelchairs sat in the sun. Families gathered on benches, life and death existing side by side. When Daniel died, Victoria said, I wanted to die too. I had everything, money, power, success, and none of it mattered. I'd traded my son's childhood for quarterly earnings reports. I'd chosen board meetings over bedtime stories. And when he was gone, I realized I'd never get those years back. She sat on a bench, gestured for Marcus to join her. I threw myself back into work because that's all I knew how to do. Hale Industries grew. We went international, doubled our revenue, became one of the top medical supply companies in the world. And I was miserable, every single day miserable. Then 3 months ago I had the first heart episode. Woke up in the middle of the night, chest pain, couldn't breathe. Ended up in the ER thinking I was having a heart attack. Tests came back clean, but the cardiologist said my heart was stressed. Broken heart syndrome, he called it. Your heart can literally break from grief. She looked at Marcus. That's when I remembered the promise. Grace's face telling me to be there for her family if anything happened. And I realized I'd failed. Not just Daniel, but Grace too. So I started looking. Called in favors, accessed databases I probably shouldn't have. Found Ethan's name on the transplant list and knew I had one chance to make things right. And the flight? Marcus asked. Victoria smiled sadly. That was Grace. Had to be. What are the odds that I'd collapse on the same plane as the man I'd been searching for, that you'd be the one to save me? No, that wasn't coincidence. That was your wife making sure I kept my promise. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to say it was just random chance, but he couldn't. The timing was too perfect, too impossible. "I don't know how to repay you," he said quietly. "You don't repay a promise," Victoria said. "You just accept it and move forward. Help your son get well. That's all the repayment I need." They sat in silence. Two people bound by grief and hope, and a woman who'd loved them both enough to bridge the gap. Marcus's phone buzzed. "Jenny, Ethan's asking when you're coming home. Should I tell him about New York?" Marcus typed back quickly. "Tell him I found the doctor. Tell him we're going to fix his heart. Tell him Daddy's coming home today." He looked at Victoria. "I need to go back tonight." "Already arranged," she said, pulling out her own phone. "Private flight leaves at 6. You'll be in Phoenix by 9, back with Ethan by 10. "Private flight," Marcus repeated. That's too much." "Marcus," Victoria said firmly. "Stop. You saved my life last night. Let me save yours, and Ethan's. This is happening. Accept it." He nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. That night, Marcus sat in a leather seat on a private jet and thought about everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Yesterday morning, he'd been a desperate man with $15,000 and no hope. Now he had hope, had a plan, had a stranger who'd become something like family. His phone rang. Unknown number again. "Mr. Reed. This is Sandy from Dr. Richardson's office. I wanted to let you know that we've already begun the process of getting Ethan listed with UNOS, the United Network for Organ Sharing. It's the official registry for all organ transplants in the country. We're putting him at status 1, which is the highest priority for pediatric patients. It means if a compatible heart becomes available, Ethan moves to the top of the list." "How long?" Marcus asked. "There's no way to know," Sandy said gently. "Could be tomorrow, could be months. But we're watching 24/7. The moment a heart becomes available, we'll call you, day or night." "Thank you," Marcus whispered. When he landed in Phoenix, Jenny was waiting at the private terminal with tears streaming down her face. "Is it real?" she asked, hugging him so tight he couldn't breathe. "Everything you told me, is it really real?" "It's real," Marcus said. "We're taking him to New York tomorrow. Victoria Hale is paying for everything." "Who is she?" Jenny asked. "I looked her up. She's worth like $300 million. Why would someone like that help us?" Marcus told her the story. All of it. The flight, the collapse, the promise to Grace. By the time he finished, Jenny was crying again. "Grace knew," she said. "Somehow she knew this would happen." They drove straight to the hospital. It was almost midnight, but Marcus didn't care. He needed to see his son. Ethan was asleep when they arrived. Small body dwarfed by the hospital bed, oxygen tube in his nose monitors, beeping steadily. Marcus stood in the doorway just watching him breathe. "Hey, buddy," he whispered, moving to the bedside. "Daddy's here." Ethan's eyes fluttered open, those big brown eyes, Grace's eyes looking up at him with trust. Marcus didn't deserve. "Did you find the doctor?" Ethan asked, voice sleepy. "I found the doctor," Marcus said, taking his son's hand. "Best doctor in the whole country. And tomorrow we're going to fly to New York so he can help you." "On a plane?" Ethan's eyes widened. "I never been on a plane before." "This one's special," Marcus said. "It's gonna have doctors and nurses and everything you need. And when we get there, we're going to wait for a new heart for you." "Will it hurt?" Ethan asked. Marcus couldn't lie. "Yeah, buddy, it's gonna hurt. But after you're gonna feel so much better. You'll be able to run and play and do everything other kids do. And Mommy will be proud of me." The words hit Marcus like a truck. "Mommy is so proud of you, every single day. And you know what? She sent someone to help us. A lady named Victoria. She knew Mommy a long time ago, and she's making sure you get better." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Is Victoria an angel?" Marcus smiled through tears. "Maybe. In a way, yeah. She might be." "Okay." Ethan said, closing his eyes again. If Mommy sent her, then it's okay. Marcus sat there holding his son's hand until the nurses came to prep him for transport. Everything moved fast after that. Medical teams, paperwork, phone calls. By 7 the next morning, they were loading Ethan onto Victoria's private medical jet. She was there too, standing on the tarmac in simple jeans and a sweater, looking nothing like a CEO worth hundreds of millions. "Hi, Ethan," she said gently, kneeling beside the stretcher. "I'm Victoria. Your dad told me you're a very brave boy." Ethan looked at her with those serious eyes. "Are you the angel?" Victoria blinked, surprised. "I'm not an angel, sweetheart." "Daddy said you might be," Ethan said. "He said Mommy sent you." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Marcus, then back at Ethan. "Your mommy was the angel, Ethan. I'm just keeping a promise to her. To help me get better." "To help you get better," Victoria confirmed. "Is that okay?" Ethan nodded. "Okay. Thank you, Angel Victoria." Marcus saw something break open in Victoria's face. She reached out, touched Ethan's hand gently. "You're welcome, brave boy." The flight to New York was smooth. Ethan slept most of the way, monitors beeping steadily, medical team watching over him. Marcus sat across from Victoria, and they talked. She told him about Daniel, about the boy who'd loved comic books and terrible jokes, who'd wanted to be a marine biologist before the cancer took over, about how he'd faced death with more courage than she'd ever managed in life. Marcus told her about Grace, about the woman who'd worked double shifts to help pay for nursing school, who'd sung off-key in the shower, who'd made the world's worst pancakes but insisted on making them every Sunday, about how she died on a Tuesday afternoon, no warning, no goodbye, just gone. "She would have loved this," Marcus said. "Grace, I mean. She would have loved that her promise to you ended up saving Ethan. She always believed in circles like that, what she called cosmic justice." "She was right," Victoria said. "This is cosmic justice, for all of us." When they landed at JFK, an ambulance was waiting. They rushed Ethan straight to Mount Sinai, got him settled in a private room on the pediatric cardiac floor. The room had a window with a view of the city walls painted with cartoon characters and enough medical equipment to run a small hospital. Dr. Richardson came by that evening, did his own examination, reviewed all the tests they'd run. "He's stable," he said finally. "Weaker than I'd like, but stable. We'll start him on IV medications to support his heart function while we wait." And we wait. "How often do hearts become available?" Marcus asked. "Not often enough," Dr. Richardson said honestly. "We have 32 children on the list right now. Ethan's status 1, which helps, but it's still a numbers game. We need a child his size, his blood type, his tissue match, and we need that child to die in a way that leaves their heart viable for donation." The reality of it hit Marcus hard. For Ethan to live, someone else's child had to die. Some other family had to suffer the worst loss imaginable and choose in their grief to donate their child's organs. How did you pray for that? How did you hope for that? "I know what you're thinking," Dr. Richardson said quietly. "Every parent in this wing is thinking the same thing. But here's what I tell them: you're not wishing for another child to die. That's going to happen regardless. Traffic accidents, brain injuries, tragedies we can't prevent. What you're hoping for is that when that tragedy occurs, the family chooses to give the gift of life. That's not cruel. That's honoring death by creating life from it." Marcus nodded, unable to speak. That night he slept in a chair beside Ethan's bed. Couldn't bring himself to leave, even when the nurses said there were parent rooms available. What if something happened? What if the call came and he wasn't there? At 2 in the morning, someone knocked softly on the door. Victoria carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," she said. They sat together in the darkness, listening to Ethan breathe, watching the monitors, waiting. "I haven't been able to sleep either," Victoria admitted. "Keep thinking about Daniel. about what it felt like to wait hoping for a miracle that never came. "But you had Grace," Marcus said. "I had Grace." Victoria agreed. "And now you have me. And together we have Ethan. That has to be enough." "Is it?" Marcus asked. "Is it enough?" Victoria looked at Ethan, small and fragile in the hospital bed. "It has to be." Days passed, then a week, then 2. Ethan's condition remained stable, held together by medications and hope. Marcus never left the hospital, slept in the chair, ate cafeteria food, existed in a weird limbo between present and future. Victoria visited every day, sometimes for hours, sometimes just for minutes. She'd bring food, books, games for Ethan. She'd sit and tell stories about Daniel, and Marcus would tell stories about Grace, and slowly, impossibly, they became something like friends. Ethan called her Aunt Vicky. She never corrected him. One afternoon, while Ethan was napping, Victoria pulled Marcus into the hallway. "I need to show you something," she said, pulling out her phone. "Daniel's journal. I couldn't read it after he died, but last night I finally opened it." She scrolled to a page, handed Marcus the phone. Daniel's handwriting was messy teenage scrawl, but the words were clear. "Nurse Grace told me today that the best way to fight being scared is to help someone else stop being scared. She said when you give hope to others, you find it for yourself. I think she's right. I think that's why she's not afraid of anything. Mom could learn from her. I wish Mom could learn from her." Marcus looked up at Victoria. Tears were streaming down her face. "He saw it," she whispered. "He saw what I couldn't, that Grace was teaching me how to be brave by showing me what love looked like. And I was too blind to see it until it was too late." "You see it now," Marcus said. "That's what matters." "Do I?" Victoria asked. "Because some days I think I'm doing this for me, not for Ethan. I'm doing this to ease my own guilt, to feel like I'm not a complete failure as a human being." "You're doing it because Grace asked you to," Marcus said firmly. "And that makes it real. Intent matters, Victoria. You're here, you're helping, you're keeping a promise. That's more than most people ever do." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Thank you." They stood there in the hallway, 2 broken people holding each other up, while somewhere in the distance, a child waited for a heart that might never come. But it would come. Marcus chose to believe it would come, because Grace had set this all in motion, and Grace had never broken a promise in her life. 3 weeks turned into 4. 4 weeks turned into 6. Ethan's 8th birthday came and went in a hospital room decorated with balloons Victoria had brought and a cake the nurses had smuggled in against dietary restrictions. He'd blown out the candles with oxygen tubes in his nose, made a wish Marcus knew by heart. "I wished for a new heart, Daddy." Marcus had smiled and said, "Good wish, buddy." But privately in the bathroom with the door locked, he'd broken down. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of waiting, of hoping, of watching his son get weaker despite the medications. The doctors said Ethan was stable, but Marcus could see the truth. The blue tint to his lips was darker. He slept more, smiled less. His small body was giving up. Victoria saw it too. She'd stopped asking how Marcus was doing, stopped pretending there were easy answers. Instead, she just showed up. Every single day without fail, she'd walk into that hospital room and sit with them. Some days, she'd bring work laptop open, running a $300 million company from a plastic chair beside a dying child. Other days, she'd bring nothing but herself, and she'd tell Ethan stories about Daniel, about the boy who'd loved sharks, and terrible puns, who'd once convinced the entire oncology floor to have a superhero costume day. "Uncle Daniel sounds cool," Ethan said one afternoon, his voice weak. Marcus and Victoria exchanged glances. Neither of them had told Ethan that Daniel was dead. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that the boy in the stories had been waiting for his own miracle that never came? He was the coolest. Victoria said, her voice steady. "And you know what he would have loved you." "Really? Really, you're both fighters, both brave, Both have terrible taste in jokes. Ethan giggled, then coughed. The monitors beeped faster. A nurse appeared immediately, checking his vitals, adjusting his oxygen. "He's okay," she said to Marcus. "Just needs to rest." But Marcus saw the concern in her eyes. The same concern he'd been seeing more and more lately. That night after Ethan fell asleep, Dr. Richardson asked to speak with Marcus and Victoria privately. They followed him to a consultation room down the hall, and Marcus's stomach dropped. Nothing good ever happened in consultation rooms. "Ethan's heart function is declining," Dr. Richardson said without preamble. "His ejection fraction is down to 12%. We're maxed out on medications. The next step is a ventricular assist device." "The artificial pump," Marcus said. "You mentioned that before." "It's major surgery," Dr. Richardson continued. "We'd essentially be installing a mechanical heart to do the work his own heart can't. It would keep him alive longer, give us more time to find a donor, but it's risky. Infection, blood clots, device failure. The mortality rate for pediatric VAD is around 20%. Marcus felt Victoria's hand grip his arm. "What happens if we don't do it?" he asked, though he knew. "Without intervention, Ethan has maybe 2 weeks, 3 at the outside." The room spun. 2 weeks. After everything, after all of this, 2 weeks. "When would you do the surgery?" Victoria asked. "Tomorrow," Dr. Richardson said. "We need to do it before he gets any weaker. I've already scheduled the OR for 7 a.m. Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't think. His son was going to have his chest cracked open, a machine installed to pump his blood, and there was a 1 in 5 chance he wouldn't survive it. "I need a minute," he said, standing up. "I need—" He walked out before either of them could respond. Made it to the stairwell before his legs gave out. Sat on the cold concrete steps and put his head in his hands. "Grace. God. Anyone. I need help." The door opened. Victoria sat down beside him, didn't say anything, just sat there sharing the weight of silence. "I can't lose him," Marcus finally said. "I can't. Grace is gone, and if Ethan goes too, there's nothing left. I'm nothing left." "That's not true," Victoria said quietly. "Yes, it is." Marcus looked at her, and all the anger and fear and grief of the last 3 years came pouring out. "You want to know why I let my paramedic certification lapse? Why I gave up a career I loved? Because Grace died and I couldn't save her. I'm trained to save lives, and I couldn't save my own wife. What's the point of having those skills if they don't matter when it counts?" "You saved me," Victoria said. "You're not Grace. You're not Ethan." "No, I'm not, but I'm here. And I'm telling you that you didn't fail Grace. An aneurysm isn't something you can fight with CPR or defibrillators or any amount of training. What happened to her wasn't your fault. Doesn't change the fact that she's dead." "No," Victoria agreed. "It doesn't, but it means you're not a failure. You're a father doing everything humanly possible to save his son. And tomorrow, when Ethan goes into that surgery, he's going to need you to be strong. Not because you're not scared, but because you're scared and you show up anyway." Marcus wiped his eyes. Grace used to say something like that, about courage being scared and doing it anyway. She was a smart woman. They sat there for a while longer, neither speaking. Finally, Marcus stood up. "I should tell Ethan about tomorrow." "Want me to come with you?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "Yeah, I do." Ethan was awake when they returned, watching cartoons on the small TV mounted to the wall. He looked so small in that bed, swallowed by blankets and tubes and machines. "Hey, buddy," Marcus said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "We need to talk about something." Ethan muted the TV. "Am I gonna die?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. "What?" "Nobody know. Why would you think that—" "I heard the nurses talking," Ethan said. His voice was matter-of-fact, too old for an 8-year-old. "They said my heart's getting worse. They said I don't have much time." Marcus wanted to rage at those nurses, wanted to scream at them for being careless. But what good would it do? Ethan was smart. He'd been living in this hospital for 6 weeks. Of course he knew. "Your heart is getting tired," Marcus said carefully. "So tomorrow Dr. Richardson is going to do a surgery to help it. He's going to put in a special pump that will do some of the work for your heart while we wait for a new one." "Will it hurt?" "You'll be asleep for the surgery," Victoria said, moving closer. "And after they'll give you medicine for the pain. But yes, sweetheart, it's going to hurt for a little while." Ethan looked at her, then at Marcus. "What if I don't wake up?" Marcus felt his heart shatter. "You're going to wake up. I promise." "You promised I wouldn't die like Mommy," Ethan said. "But I heard you and Aunt Vicky talking. I heard you say there's a 20% chance." Victoria closed her eyes. Marcus wanted to disappear, wanted to rewind time, wanted anything except to be having this conversation. "There's an 80% chance you'll be fine," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "That's 4 out of 5 kids. That's really, really good odds, buddy." "But one kid doesn't make it." "Yeah," Marcus admitted. "One kid doesn't make it. But that's not going to be you. You're strong, you're a fighter, and you've got the best doctors in the world taking care of you." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "If I don't wake up, will I see Mommy?" Marcus couldn't answer. His throat was too tight, tears falling too fast. Victoria sat on the other side of the bed, took Ethan's hand. "Yes," she said firmly. "If that happens, and it won't, but if it does, your Mommy will be right there waiting for you. And so will my son Daniel, and they'll take care of you until your daddy gets there." "But Ethan, listen to me. That's not going to happen. You're going to wake up from this surgery, and you're going to get your new heart, and you're going to grow up and do amazing things." "How do you know?" Ethan asked. "Because your mother made me promise to make sure of it," Victoria said. "And I keep my promises." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay. I believe you, Aunt Vicky." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep at all. He sat in the chair beside Ethan's bed, watching his son breathe, memorizing every detail of his face, the way his hair stuck up in the back, the freckle on his left cheek that Grace used to kiss every night, the way his fingers curled when he slept just like they had when he was a baby. Please, Marcus thought, please let him be okay. Victoria had gone home around midnight, but she was back at 5 a.m., carrying coffee and looking like she hadn't slept either. "How is he?" she asked, scared. "Me too." "Me too," Victoria admitted. They prepped Ethan at 6. A whole team of nurses and doctors explaining the procedure, asking questions, checking vitals. Ethan stayed quiet through all of it, holding Marcus's hand tight. "I love you, buddy," Marcus said as they wheeled him toward the OR. "So much. You're the bravest kid I know." "Love you too, Daddy." Ethan's voice was small. "Tell Mommy I tried to be brave like her." "You are brave like her," Marcus said, walking alongside the gurney. "You're exactly like her." At the OR doors, they had to stop. No parents allowed beyond this point. Marcus kissed Ethan's forehead, and then the door swung shut, and his son was gone. The waiting room was pale blue with uncomfortable chairs and magazines no one ever read. Marcus sat down, stood up, paced, sat down again. Victoria sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. An hour passed, then 2, then 3. "It's taking too long," Marcus said. "Dr. Richardson said 4 to 6 hours, Victoria reminded him. "It's been 3.5. What if something went wrong?" "Then they'll fix it. That's what they do." But her voice was shaking. 4 hours. 5. Marcus thought he might lose his mind. Every time the OR doors opened, he jumped up, hoping for news, but it was always someone else's doctor, someone else's update. Finally, at hour 5 and 43 minutes, Dr. Richardson emerged. Still in his surgical scrubs mask, pulled down exhaustion written across his face. Marcus was on his feet before the doctor even reached them. "How is he?" "The surgery was successful," Dr. Richardson said, and Marcus's legs nearly gave out. "We implanted the VAD without complications. Ethan's heart is responding well to the support. He's being moved to cardiac ICU now." "Can we see him?" Victoria asked. "Give the nurses about 30 minutes to get him settled then, yes. He'll be sedated for the next 12 to 24 hours while his body adjusts to the device. After that, we'll gradually wake him up." "But he's okay." Marcus needed to hear it again. "He's going to be okay. He came through the surgery beautifully," Dr. Richardson said. "The VAD is functioning perfectly. This buys us time, Mr. Reed. Time to find a heart." After the doctor left, Marcus sat down hard and cried. Not quiet tears, but huge, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep in his chest. Victoria sat beside him, put her arm around his shoulders and cried with him. "He made it," Marcus kept saying. "He made it." "He made it," Victoria agreed. When they finally let them into the ICU, Ethan looked worse than Marcus had ever seen him. Intubated, sedated, more tubes and wires than seemed possible for one small body. The VAD itself was a machine beside the bed, quietly pumping, keeping Ethan's blood flowing when his own heart couldn't. Marcus took his son's hand, careful of all the IVs. "I'm here, buddy. Daddy's here. You did so good. So good." Victoria stood on the other side of the bed, looking at Ethan with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. Love, maybe, or grief, or some combination of both. "He looks like Grace," she said softly. "The pictures I saw from the hospital. He has her eyes." "Yeah," Marcus said. "He does." They stayed there for hours, taking turns sitting, standing talking quietly to Ethan, even though he couldn't hear. The nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting machines, offering encouragement. "He's doing great," one of them said. "Vitals are strong, the VAD is working perfectly. This is exactly what we want to see." Marcus wanted to believe her, wanted to relax, but he'd learned over the last 3 years that nothing was certain. Good news could turn bad in a heartbeat. Literally. That night, they finally convinced Marcus to get a few hours of sleep in one of the parent rooms. Victoria said she'd stay, promised to call if anything changed. Marcus didn't want to leave, but exhaustion was making him useless. He needed rest if he was going to be any good to Ethan. He woke up 4 hours later to his phone ringing. Victoria's number. "What's wrong?" he said, already pulling on his shoes. "Nothing's wrong," Victoria said quickly. "He's waking up. Dr. Richardson is pulling the breathing tube. I thought you'd want to be here." Marcus was out the door before she finished the sentence. When he got to the ICU, Ethan was still groggy, but awake, eyes half open, trying to focus. The breathing tube was out, replaced by oxygen through his nose. He looked confused, scared. "Daddy?" His voice was hoarse, barely audible. "I'm here," Marcus said, taking his hand. "I'm right here, buddy. You did it. The surgery's over. You're okay." "Hurts," Ethan whispered. I know. The nurses are going to give you medicine for the pain. Just breathe nice and slow." Ethan's eyes found Victoria. "Aunt Vicky." "Right here, sweetheart," she said, moving closer. "You were so brave." "Did it work?" Ethan asked. "The pump thing." "It worked perfectly," Marcus said. "Your heart has help now. We just have to wait for the right heart to come, and then you'll be all better." Ethan closed his eyes, exhausted from just those few minutes of being awake. "Okay, that's good." He drifted back to sleep, and Marcus finally let himself breathe. Over the next week, Ethan slowly recovered from the surgery. The pain decreased, he started eating again, even managed to smile at a few of Victoria's terrible jokes. The VAD hummed quietly beside his bed, a constant reminder that they were living on borrowed time. "How long can he be on this?" Marcus asked Dr. Richardson during one of the daily check-ins. "Indefinitely, if necessary," the doctor said. though we prefer not to go longer than 6 months to a year. The longer he's on it, the higher the risk of complications. But some patients have been on VADs for years while waiting. Years. Marcus tried not to think about that possibility. 9 weeks after they'd arrived at Mount Sinai, Marcus was half asleep in the chair beside Ethan's bed when his phone rang. 2 in the morning. Unknown number. His heart stopped. "Mr. Reed, this is Dr. Richardson. We have a heart." Marcus was instantly awake. "What?" "We have a donor heart. 6-year-old compatible blood type, good tissue match. The organ procurement team is harvesting it now in Boston. We'll have it here in approximately 4 hours. We need to prep Ethan for surgery immediately." "It's happening," Marcus breathed. "It's really happening." "It's happening," Dr. Richardson confirmed. "Get to the hospital now. We'll see you in pre-op." Marcus hung up and immediately called Victoria. She answered on the first ring. "They found a heart," he said. "Victoria, they found a heart." There was silence on the other end. Then, "I'm on my way." Marcus woke Ethan gently. "Buddy, wake up. We got good news." Ethan's eyes opened, still sleepy. "What?" "They found you a heart," Marcus said, smiling through tears. "You're getting your new heart today." Ethan blinked, processing. Then his face broke into the biggest smile Marcus had seen in months. "Really? Really for real? Really for real? The doctors are going to come get you soon. You ready?" "I'm ready," Ethan said, then quieter. "Is Aunt Vicky coming?" "She's on her way right now." "Good," Ethan said. "I want her here too." Victoria arrived 20 minutes later, hair uncombed, no makeup, wearing jeans and a sweater she'd clearly grabbed from the floor. She looked more human than Marcus had ever seen her, and somehow more beautiful for it. "Hi, brave boy," she said, going straight to Ethan's bed. "Heard you're getting a new heart today." "Yeah," Ethan said, suddenly shy. "I'm a little scared." "That's okay," Victoria said. "Being scared is normal. But you know what? You're going to do great. And when you wake up, your daddy and I will both be right here waiting. Promise." "I promise," Victoria said. "I keep my promises, remember." The surgical team arrived at 4 a.m. They went through all the pre-op procedures, explained what would happen, answered Ethan's questions with patience and kindness. Through it all, Marcus and Victoria stood on either side of the bed, holding Ethan's hands. "The heart is almost here," Dr. Richardson said. "We're going to take you down to the OR now." This was it, the moment everything had been building toward. Marcus leaned down, kissed his son's forehead. "I love you more than anything in this world. You're the strongest, bravest person I know, and I'll be right here when you wake up." "I love you too, Daddy," Ethan said. Then he looked at Victoria. "I love you too, Aunt Vicky." Victoria's face crumpled. She kissed his cheek, whispered something Marcus couldn't hear, and stepped back. They wheeled Ethan away, and Marcus and Victoria stood in the empty hospital room, neither of them moving. "She sent him to us," Victoria finally said. "Grace. She sent Ethan to me so I could keep my promise, and she sent you to me so I wouldn't be alone when I did it." "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "I think she did." They went back to the waiting room. The same pale blue walls, the same uncomfortable chairs. But this time, they weren't alone. Jenny had flown in overnight, and she sat with them. Victoria's assistant, Robert, appeared with coffee and food no one ate. Even some of the nurses who'd cared for Ethan stopped by to wait. The surgery took 8 hours. 8 hours of not knowing, not breathing, existing in a space between hope and terror. Finally, Dr. Richardson appeared, still in his scrubs, and Marcus knew before the doctor even spoke. He was smiling. "The transplant was successful," Dr. Richardson said, and Marcus felt the world tilt sideways. "The new heart is beating strong. Ethan's in recovery now." Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't move. Victoria grabbed his arm, holding him upright as his knees buckled. "He's okay," Jenny asked, crying. "He's really okay. He came through beautifully. Dr. Richardson said. The heart was a perfect match. No complications during surgery. His body accepted it immediately. We're monitoring him closely, but all signs are excellent. Marcus found his voice. When can I see him? Another hour while they finish up in recovery, then we'll move him to cardiac ICU. He'll be sedated for at least 12 hours, probably longer. We want to give his body time to adjust to the new heart without stress. After the doctor left, Marcus turned to Victoria and just held on. She held him back, both of them shaking, crying, not caring who saw. He made it, Marcus kept saying. He actually made it. He made it, Victoria repeated. Grace kept her promise. She kept both of us going long enough to get here. Jenny was hugging them both now, the three of them standing in the middle of the waiting room, like survivors of a shipwreck finally reaching shore. When they finally let Marcus into the ICU, Ethan looked different. Not just the tubes and machines, though there were plenty of those. Something in his color, his breathing, the way his chest rose and fell. He looked alive in a way he hadn't in months. Marcus took his son's hand and just cried. Relief, gratitude, exhaustion. Everything he'd been holding in for the last 3 years poured out all at once. Thank you, he whispered to the room, to Grace, to God, to whoever was listening. Thank you. Victoria appeared beside him, placed her hand on Ethan's other arm. Welcome back, brave boy. The first 48 hours were critical. Ethan's body could still reject the heart, could develop complications, could crash in 100 different ways. But hour by hour, his vitals stayed strong. The new heartbeat steadily pumping oxygen-rich blood through his body, turning his lips from blue to pink for the first time in years. On the second day, they started waking him up, gradually reducing the sedation, letting him surface slowly. Marcus sat beside the bed holding Ethan's hand, talking to him even though he was still unconscious. Hey buddy, it's Daddy. You did it. You got your new heart. It's beating so strong the doctors say it's perfect. When you wake up, everything's going to be different. You're going to feel so much better. Victoria was there too, had barely left except to shower and change clothes. She'd sit on the other side of the bed, sometimes working on her laptop, sometimes just watching Ethan breathe. I called Daniel's father last night, she said quietly. First time I've spoken to him in 2 years. Told him what was happening. He said Daniel would be happy, that Daniel always wanted his death to mean something. Marcus looked at her. This means something. What you're doing for Ethan, it means everything. I'm not doing it for Ethan, Victoria said. I mean, I am, but that's not why. I'm doing it because for the first time in 3 years, I feel like I'm honoring my son instead of running from his memory. Does that make sense? Yeah, Marcus said. It does. Ethan's eyes opened for the first time that afternoon, slow, confused, trying to focus. Daddy? Marcus was on his feet instantly. I'm here, buddy. Right here. Did I get the heart? Ethan's voice was hoarse from the breathing tube. You got the heart. It's in there right now, beating strong and perfect. How do you feel? Ethan thought about it. Different. My chest hurts, but different than before. That's the surgery healing, Marcus explained. But your heart, your new heart, it's working great. Can you feel it? Ethan placed his hand on his chest, eyes widening. It's so strong. That's what a healthy heart feels like, Marcus said, crying again. That's what you're supposed to feel like. Victoria moved closer. Hi, sweetheart. Welcome back. Hi, Aunt Vicky. Ethan smiled weakly. I'm not blue anymore, am I? No. Victoria said, touching his cheek. You're perfect. Over the next week, Ethan's recovery was remarkable. The doctors used words like textbook and exactly what we want to see. His body accepted the new heart without any signs of rejection. His energy started coming back. He could sit up without getting winded, could talk without having to stop for breath every few words. This is amazing, Dr. Richardson said during one of his daily visits. Ethan's one of the best responders I've seen. If he keeps progressing like this, we might be able to send him home in a month. Home. Marcus hadn't thought about Phoenix in weeks. Their apartment was still there, still paid up through the end of the year thanks to Victoria quietly covering the rent. But could he really take Ethan back there? Away from Mount Sinai, away from Dr. Richardson, away from the best cardiac care in the country. "What are you thinking?" Victoria asked. They were in the cafeteria taking a break while Ethan napped. "I don't know how to go back," Marcus admitted. "To Phoenix, to normal life. Everything's different now." "So don't go back," Victoria said. "Stay in New York." Marcus shook his head. "I can't afford New York. I can barely afford Phoenix." "You can if you work for me," Victoria said. She'd clearly been planning this. "Hale Industries needs someone to run our new patient advocacy program. Someone who understands what families go through, who can help navigate the medical system, who can be the person for others that I was for you." Marcus stared at her. "You're offering me a job." "I'm offering you a purpose," Victoria said, "and a salary that will let you stay near Ethan's medical team, put him in a good school, give him the life he deserves. What do you say?" "I say you've already done too much for us." "There's no such thing as too much," Victoria said firmly. "Not when it comes to keeping promises. Grace asked me to take care of your family. Let me do that." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "On one condition. You let me take care of you too." "I don't need taking care of." "Yes, you do," Marcus said. "You're still dealing with your heart condition. You're still grieving Daniel. You're still carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. Let me help. Let us be family for real." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that." 2 weeks after the transplant, Ethan was doing so well, they moved him out of ICU and into a regular room. A room with a window with space to move around with a TV and comfortable chairs and signs that life was returning to normal. Jenny flew back to Phoenix to pack up their apartment and arrange for their things to be shipped to New York. Victoria's assistant found them a place in Brooklyn near the hospital with 2 bedrooms and a small backyard where Ethan could play once he was strong enough. "You're sure about this?" Marcus asked Victoria as they walked through the empty apartment. "About all of it." "I've never been more sure of anything," Victoria said. "This is what Grace wanted. This is what I should have done 3 years ago." Moving day was chaos. Boxes everywhere. Furniture being arranged. Ethan directing traffic from a wheelchair, even though he was getting stronger every day. The doctor said he could try walking with assistance soon, that his new heart was giving him energy he'd never had before. "Put my bed by the window," Ethan told the movers. "I want to see outside when I wake up." Marcus watched his son, his alive, healing, pink-lipped son, and felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. Real, solid hope for the future. That night, after everything was unpacked and Ethan was asleep in his new room, Marcus and Victoria sat on the small porch with coffee. "I still can't believe this is real," Marcus said. 3 months ago, I was broke and desperate and my son was dying. Now we're here, he's alive, we have a future. "Grace always said the universe has a way of balancing things out," Victoria said. "You lose something, you find something else. Not a replacement, just something different to hold on to." "Is that what we are?" Marcus asked. "Something different to hold on to." Victoria looked at him. "I think we're family. Strange, complicated, born from tragedy family. But family." "Family," Marcus agreed. "I like that." The weeks passed. Ethan grew stronger. Every day went from wheelchair to walker to taking his first steps unassisted. The first time he walked across the living room by himself, Marcus cried so hard he had to leave the room. "Daddy's being emotional again," Ethan told Victoria, who'd become a permanent fixture in their lives. "That's because he loves you," Victoria said. "And he's been scared for a very long time. Seeing you strong and healthy, it's overwhelming." "I like being strong," Ethan said, sitting on the couch beside her. "I can actually play now, not like before when I'd get tired after 5 minutes." "What do you want to do?" Victoria asked. "When you're all better, what's the first thing you want to do?" Ethan thought about it. I want to go to the beach. Mommy used to talk about taking me to the beach, but we never got to go. She said the ocean was magic. Then we'll go to the beach, Victoria promised, as soon as Dr. Richardson says it's okay. Marcus had come back into the room in time to hear this. Your mom loved the ocean. We went to California for our honeymoon, spent 3 days just sitting on the beach. Tell me about Mommy, Ethan said. I'm starting to forget what she looked like. Marcus's heart broke a little, but he sat down and pulled out his phone, showed Ethan the photos he'd saved. Grace laughing at their wedding, Grace pregnant with Ethan. Grace holding newborn Ethan in the hospital, Grace and Ethan at his first birthday party. She was beautiful, Victoria said, looking at the photos. And she loved you so much, Ethan. Everything she did was for you. I know, Ethan said. Daddy tells me all the time. And I think she sent you to help us, Aunt Vicky. That's what Daddy said. Victoria glanced at Marcus, then back at Ethan. I think so too. Your mom made me promise to take care of you and your dad, and I'm going to keep that promise forever. Good, Ethan said simply. I like having you here. 3 months after the transplant, Dr. Richardson gave them news they'd been waiting for. Ethan's recovery is exceptional. No signs of rejection. Heart function is perfect. He's hitting all his developmental milestones. As far as I'm concerned, he's cleared for normal activities. Swimming, running, playing. Just avoid contact sports for now. The beach? Ethan asked immediately. Dr. Richardson smiled. The beach is perfect. They went the following weekend. Victoria rented a house in the Hamptons, something ridiculously expensive that she waved off when Marcus protested. The three of them drove out on a Saturday morning, Ethan bouncing in the back seat with excitement. When they got to the beach, Ethan ran straight for the water. Actually ran something he'd never been able to do before. Marcus and Victoria followed, watching him splash in the waves, laughing with pure joy. Grace would love this, Marcus said, his voice thick. She's here, Victoria said. I can feel her. She's watching him play and she's happy. You really believe that? Marcus asked. I have to, Victoria said. Otherwise, what's the point of any of it? The pain, the loss, the promises. It has to mean something. They spent the day building sandcastles, collecting shells, watching Ethan tire himself out in the best possible way. When the sun started setting, they sat on the beach together, Ethan between Marcus and Victoria. This is the best day ever, Ethan announced. Can we come back? Anytime you want, Victoria promised. Ethan looked out at the ocean, then turned to Victoria. Aunt Vicky, can I ask you something? Anything, sweetheart. Why do you always look sad when you think no one's watching? Victoria froze. Marcus started to intervene, but she held up a hand. Because I lost someone I loved very much, Victoria said honestly. My son Daniel. And sometimes even when I'm happy I still miss him. Like how I miss Mommy? Ethan asked. Exactly like that. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, But you have me and Daddy now. We can't replace Daniel, but maybe we can help you be less sad. Victoria pulled Ethan into a hug, crying into his hair. You already have, brave boy. You already have. That night, after Ethan was asleep in his room at the beach house, Marcus and Victoria sat on the deck watching the stars. I need to tell you something, Victoria said. About the donor family. The family whose child gave Ethan his heart. Marcus had tried not to think about them, those people whose worst day had made his best day possible. What about them? They want to meet you, Victoria said. It's anonymous through the donor network, but they sent a letter through the transplant coordinator. They said knowing their daughter's heart is helping another child live, it helps them find meaning in what happened. Marcus's throat tightened. Their daughter. 6 years old. Car accident. She was brain dead, but her heart was perfect. Her parents made the decision to donate within hours because they wanted something good to come from something so terrible. I don't know if I can, Marcus said. I don't know what I'd say to them. You don't have to decide now, Victoria said. But maybe someday. When Ethan's older, when he asks about where his heart came from. These people gave you the most precious gift imaginable. At some point, maybe you'll want to thank them. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the ocean. Finally, Marcus said, I never thought I'd feel this again. Feel what? Happy, Marcus said. After Grace died, I thought happiness was over. That the best I could hope for was getting through each day. But sitting here knowing Ethan's inside, sleeping peacefully with a strong heart, knowing you're here too, knowing we're all going to be okay. I'm happy. Victoria took his hand. Me too. For the first time since Daniel died, I'm happy. Grace would be proud of us, Marcus said. Yeah, Victoria agreed. She would. The next morning, they woke up to Ethan standing in the doorway between their rooms. Aunt Vicky. Can you be my family for real? Not just pretend family. Victoria sat up, looked at this child who'd somehow become hers without her noticing. I am your family for real, Ethan. I have been since the moment I made a promise to your mother. Good, Ethan said, climbing into bed beside her. Because I was thinking since Daddy loves you and you love us, maybe you could be like my second mom, not replacing Mommy, but like an extra mom. Victoria looked over Ethan's head at Marcus, who'd appeared in the doorway. He was crying, smiling, looking at her with something that might have been love. I'd be honored, Victoria said, holding Ethan close. I'd be so honored. Then it's decided, Ethan announced with the certainty only children possess. We're a family, all three of us. And somehow, impossibly, they were. The drive back to the city that Sunday was different from the drive out. They weren't three separate people anymore, bound only by tragedy and promises. They were something new, something healing, something Grace had known they needed before any of them did. When they got home, Marcus made dinner while Victoria helped Ethan with a school project. They'd enrolled him in a private school near the apartment somewhere that understood his medical history and would watch out for him. He was starting in 2 weeks, nervous and excited in equal measure. What if the other kids think I'm weird? Ethan asked over dinner. Because of my scar. He'd become self-conscious about the vertical scar down his chest, the proof of the surgery that had saved his life. Then you tell them the truth, Victoria said. That you're a warrior, that you fought for your life and won. That scar is proof of how strong you are. Did Uncle Daniel have scars? Ethan asked. Marcus and Victoria exchanged glances. They'd been telling Ethan more about Daniel lately, helping him understand the boy whose mother had become part of their family. He did, Victoria said. From all his treatments, he used to say his scars were like a map of his battle. Every mark meant he'd survived another day. I like that, Ethan said. My scar is proof I survived. Exactly, Victoria said. That night after Ethan was asleep, Marcus found Victoria standing in the living room, looking at a photo on her phone. Daniel, he asked. Yeah. I was thinking about him meeting Ethan somehow. If there's a heaven or an afterlife or whatever, I hope they meet. I think they'd like each other. I think Grace is probably introducing them right now, Marcus said, telling Daniel all about the boy his mom is helping raise. Victoria smiled through tears. I'd like to believe that. Marcus moved closer, put his arm around her shoulders. Thank you. For everything. For keeping your promise. For being here. For loving us. I should be thanking you, Victoria said. You saved my life on that plane. And then you gave me a reason to keep living. They stood there together, two broken people who'd found a way to be whole again, and for the first time since they'd both lost the people they loved most, the future didn't look dark anymore. It looked like possibility. 6 months after the transplant, Marcus stood in the conference room of Hale Industries headquarters looking out at 50 people who'd gathered for the inaugural meeting of what Victoria had named the Hale Reed Foundation. Hospital administrators, social workers, transplant coordinators, families who'd been through what Marcus had lived through. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus said, his voice steadier than he felt. 6 months ago, I was a father with $15,000 and a dying son. I had no insurance, no connections, no way to pay for the surgery that would save his life. Today my son is healthy because someone kept a promise, and we're here to make sure other families don't have to face what I faced. Victoria stood beside him, and she took over. The Hale Reed Foundation will provide financial assistance for families facing catastrophic medical expenses related to pediatric organ transplants. We'll also offer support services, help navigating the medical system, and advocacy for policy changes that make healthcare more accessible. This isn't charity. This is justice. After the meeting, Marcus found Victoria in her office, staring out the window at the Manhattan skyline. "You okay?" he asked. "I keep thinking about how close we came to losing him," Victoria said. "If that flight had been different, if I'd taken a different airline, if you hadn't been there to save me. All these tiny moments that had to align perfectly." "But they did align," Marcus said. "Grace made sure of it." Victoria turned to face him. "Do you really believe that? That she somehow orchestrated all of this from beyond?" Marcus thought about it. "I don't know what I believe about the afterlife or divine intervention or any of it. But I know that Grace lived her entire life making connections between people, building bridges, creating networks of care. Maybe what happened on that plane wasn't supernatural. Maybe it was just Grace's natural impact on the world, finally circling back to help her own family." "I like that explanation better," Victoria admitted. "It makes her more real, less abstract." Marcus moved closer. "She was real, and so is what you're doing in her name. The foundation is going to help hundreds of families, Victoria, maybe thousands. That's Grace's legacy living on through you." "Through us," Victoria corrected. "I couldn't do this without you." The foundation's first case came 2 weeks later. A family in Detroit with a 7-year-old daughter needing a liver transplant. No insurance. Father worked construction. Mother worked retail. Combined income barely enough to keep the lights on. They'd been turned away by 3 hospitals. Marcus flew out personally to meet them. Sat in their cramped apartment and listened to their story, saw the fear and desperation he recognized from his own reflection months ago. "We're going to help you," Marcus told them. "All of it. The surgery, the medications, the recovery. You focus on your daughter. We'll handle the rest." The mother broke down crying. The father just kept saying thank you over and over, like he couldn't believe it was real. Flying back to New York, Marcus called Victoria. This is what it's about. That look on their faces when they realize they're not alone anymore. "We're doing the right thing." "I know," Victoria said. "Daniel would be proud. Grace would be proud." "They would." Marcus agreed. Ethan started school in September, nervous and excited in his new uniform. Marcus walked him to the door that first morning, and Ethan looked so small with his backpack, so vulnerable. "What if the kids are mean?" Ethan asked for the 100th time. "Then you remember who you are," Marcus said. "You're Ethan Reed. You survived heart failure, major surgery, and a transplant. You're the strongest kid in that school, even if they don't know it yet." "But what if they ask about my scar?" "We have swimming next month." "Then you tell them the truth. You needed a new heart, and you got one. Nothing to be ashamed of." Ethan nodded, but Marcus could see the fear. He knelt down to eye level. "Buddy, listen to me. You are not your scar. You're not your medical history. You're a smart, funny, kind kid who happens to have an amazing story. Own it." "Okay," Ethan said, squaring his shoulders. "I can do this." "I know you can." Marcus watched Ethan walk into the school, and Victoria appeared beside him. She'd insisted on being there for the first day. "He's going to be fine," she said. "I know. Doesn't make it easier to watch him go." "That's parenthood," Victoria said, then softer. "Thank you for letting me be part of this, of his life. I know I'm not his mother." You're not Grace, Marcus agreed. But you're Aunt Vicky, and to Ethan, to me, that's just as important. Victoria took his hand. Over the last few months, small touches like this had become natural. Not romantic, not yet, but something growing between them. Something that felt right. That afternoon, Ethan came home full of stories. He'd made 2 friends, the teacher was nice, and only one kid had asked about his medication timer that beeped at lunch. "What did you tell him?" Victoria asked. "I told him I have a special heart that needs special medicine to keep it working," Ethan said proudly. "And then I told him it came from a donor who died so I could live and that I'm going to do amazing things to honor her." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "That's perfect, buddy." "Tommy said that's the coolest thing he's ever heard," Ethan continued. "And then he asked if I wanted to play soccer at recess tomorrow." "What did you say?" "I said yes. Dr. Richardson said I could play right." "He did." Marcus confirmed. "Just take it easy at first." Watching Ethan run upstairs to change, Marcus turned to Victoria. "He's going to be okay. He's really going to be okay." "Because of you," Victoria said. "You kept fighting for him when most people would have given up." "Because of you," Marcus corrected. "I'd have nothing without you keeping that promise." The weeks turned into months. The foundation helped 5 families, then 10, then 20. Local news picked up the story, then national outlets. Marcus and Victoria found themselves doing interviews, telling their story over and over, each time feeling Grace's presence in the words. One afternoon in November, a year after that fateful flight, Marcus got a call from the transplant coordinator at Mount Sinai. "Mr. Reed, the donor family has reached out again. They'd really like to meet you and Ethan if you're comfortable with it." Marcus had been avoiding this conversation for months. How do you meet the people whose worst tragedy made your miracle possible? He talked to Victoria about it that night after Ethan went to bed. "I don't know if I can look them in the eye," Marcus admitted. "Their daughter died so mine could live. What do I say to that?" "You say thank you," Victoria said simply. "You tell them how Ethan's doing, how their daughter's heart is beating strong in a boy who's full of life and joy. You give them the peace of knowing their loss had meaning. Is that fair to them?" "I don't know if fairness applies here," Victoria said. "This is about grace, no pun intended. About honoring a gift no one should have to give." Marcus talked to Ethan about it carefully, explaining that a little girl had died and her parents wanted to meet them. "The girl whose heart I have?" Ethan asked. "Yeah, buddy." Ethan was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I want to meet them. I want to say thank you. It might be hard. They're going to be sad." "I know," Ethan said. "But Aunt Vicky is always sad about Uncle Daniel, and we don't hide from her. Maybe we can help them like we help Aunt Vicky." Out of the mouths of children, Marcus thought. The meeting was arranged for a Saturday in December at a neutral location, a private room at Mount Sinai. Marcus was terrified, but Victoria came with them for support. The donor family arrived first. Mark and Jennifer Torres, both in their 30s, holding hands like they were afraid to let go. Their daughter had been named Sophia. "Thank you for meeting us," Jennifer said, her voice shaking. "We've wanted to do this since the day of the donation, but we needed time." "We understand," Marcus said. "This is my son Ethan, and this is Victoria Hale, who's family to us." Ethan stepped forward, shy but determined. "Hi, I'm Ethan. Thank you for giving me your daughter's heart. I promise I'm taking really good care of it." Jennifer started crying. Mark put his arm around her, tears streaming down his own face. "Can I tell you about Sophia?" Jennifer asked. "Please," Ethan said. They sat down, and Jennifer pulled out photos. Sophia at her 6th birthday party, Sophia learning to ride a bike, Sophia playing with their dog, Sophia dressed up for Halloween as a superhero. "She wanted to be a doctor when she grew up," Jennifer said, "always talking about helping people, saving lives. When the accident happened, when they told us she was brain dead, we knew what Sophia would want. She'd want to help someone. She helped me, Ethan said. She saved my life. Can I? Jennifer's voice broke. Can I listen to her heart? Marcus looked at Ethan, who nodded. Jennifer leaned forward, pressed her ear to Ethan's chest. She stayed there for a long moment, listening to her daughter's heart beating in another child's chest. It's strong, she whispered. It's so strong. That's because Sophia was strong, Ethan said, with the wisdom of a child who'd faced death. And now I'm strong because of her. Mark spoke for the first time. We've been trying to figure out how to live with this. How to wake up every day knowing Sophia's gone. Meeting you, seeing that her heart is keeping you alive, it helps. It doesn't make it hurt less, but it helps. I think about her every day, Ethan said. Every time I take my medicine, every time I go to the doctor, every time I run or play or do something I couldn't do before. I think about Sophia and say thank you. Victoria was crying now too, and Marcus realized this was what Grace had known. That love doesn't end with death. It transforms, continues, ripples outward in ways we can't predict or control. Would you like to stay in touch? Marcus asked. Send updates, photos, maybe visit again. We'd like that very much, Jennifer said. They exchanged contact information, made plans to meet again in the spring. When the Torres family left, Ethan turned to Marcus. I'm glad we did that. They needed to know Sophia's heart is happy. You're a remarkable kid, you know that, Marcus said. I learned from Mommy, Ethan said, and from you and Aunt Vicky. You all taught me that when bad things happen, you find a way to make something good come from it. That night, back at the apartment, the three of them sat together on the couch. Ethan was drawing something he'd been doing more and more lately. When he finished, he held up the picture. It showed three people holding hands. A man, a woman, and a child. Above them, two figures watched from clouds. One was labeled Mommy, and the other Sophia. This is us, Ethan explained. You and Daddy and me, and Mommy and Sophia watching over us. They're happy we're together. Marcus looked at Victoria. Something unspoken passed between them, something that had been building for months. Ethan, Victoria said carefully. How would you feel if I spent even more time with you and your dad, if I was around more often? Like every day, Ethan asked. Maybe, Victoria said. I'd like that, Ethan said simply. Then he went back to his drawing, adding a dog to the picture. Can we get a dog? We'll see, Marcus said, but he was looking at Victoria. Later, after Ethan was asleep, they stood on the small balcony of the apartment looking out at the city lights. I'm falling in love with you, Marcus said quietly. I've been fighting it because I felt guilty, like I was betraying Grace, but I think Grace would want this, would want us to find happiness together. I'm already in love with you, Victoria admitted. With both of you. This weird little family we've built. I thought after Daniel died I'd never feel whole again, but being here with you and Ethan, I feel like I have purpose again. So what do we do? Marcus asked. We keep going, Victoria said. We keep building. The foundation this family, whatever comes next. We honor the people we've lost by living the lives they'd want for us. Marcus kissed her then, and it felt right. Not a betrayal of Grace, but a continuation of everything Grace had set in motion. The foundation grew. By the end of the second year, they'd helped over 100 families. Marcus and Victoria hired staff, opened an office, created partnerships with hospitals across the country. What had started as a promise to a dying nurse had become a movement. They were featured in Time magazine. Marcus told Grace's story. Victoria told Daniel's, and Ethan told Sophia's. The article was titled, When Strangers Become Family, and it went viral. Donations poured in. Celebrities got involved. Other medical nonprofits reached out to partner. The foundation that had begun with Victoria's guilt and Marcus's desperation became something neither of them had imagined. We need to expand, Victoria said one evening, reviewing the budget. We're turning away families because we don't have enough funding. We could help twice as many people if we had the infrastructure. So we build it, Marcus said. Whatever it takes. They bought a building, hired more staff, created programs not just for transplants, but for all catastrophic pediatric illness. The Hale Reed Foundation became synonymous with hope for desperate families. But more than the foundation, their family grew. Marcus and Victoria got married 2 years after Ethan's transplant, a small ceremony on the beach where they'd taken Ethan that first summer. Ethan was the ring bearer, wearing a tiny suit and a huge smile. "Do you think Mommy's okay with this?" Ethan had asked Marcus the night before the wedding. "I think Mommy set this whole thing up," Marcus said. "She sent Aunt Vicky to us. She made sure we'd all find each other." "Good," Ethan said. "Because I like having Aunt Vicky as my mom too. Is it okay to have 2 moms, one in heaven and one here?" "It's more than okay," Marcus said. "It's perfect." At the wedding, Victoria read a letter she'd written to Grace. "Dear Grace, I never got to tell you what your kindness meant to me. You sat with my dying son when I was too broken to be the mother he needed. You made me promise to care for your family if anything happened to you, and at the time I thought it was just words. I didn't know you were giving me a roadmap back to humanity. Thank you for Marcus, who reminds me every day what strength looks like. Thank you for Ethan, who taught me that love doesn't end, it just changes form. And thank you for trusting me with them. I promise I'll spend the rest of my life honoring that trust." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. 3 years after the transplant, Ethan was thriving. He played soccer, joined the school debate team, got straight A's, and talked constantly about wanting to be a doctor when he grew up. "Like Dr. Richardson," he'd say. "I want to fix hearts like he fixed mine." The Torres family stayed in touch, visiting twice a year. Jennifer and Victoria became close, bonding over shared grief and shared hope. Mark and Marcus talked about sports and work and the strange blessing of the connection their families shared. "Sophia would have loved Ethan," Jennifer said during one visit. "They would have been friends." "They are friends," Ethan insisted. "I talk to her sometimes. Is that weird?" "Not weird at all," Jennifer said, pulling him into a hug. 4 years after the transplant, Victoria's own heart issues had fully resolved. The broken heart syndrome had healed quite literally through love and purpose and the family she'd built. "You saved me," she told Marcus one night. "Not just on that plane, but every day after. You gave me a reason to keep going." "We saved each other," Marcus said. "That's what family does." 5 years after the transplant, they threw Ethan a huge party for his 13th birthday. Friends from school, families from the foundation, the entire medical team from Mount Sinai, the Torres family, Jenny flying in from Phoenix. Everyone who'd been part of Ethan's journey gathered to celebrate the boy who'd defied every odd. Dr. Richardson pulled Marcus aside. "You know, in my 30 years of practice, I've never seen a better outcome. Ethan's not just surviving, he's thriving. His heart function is perfect, no signs of rejection, nothing. It's remarkable." "It's Grace," Marcus said. "Everything good that's happened started with her." That night, after all the guests had left, the 3 of them sat on the couch like they had so many times before. "You know what's weird?" Ethan said. "I almost don't remember what it was like to be sick. Like I know it happened. I have the scar to prove it, but it feels like it happened to someone else." "That's good," Victoria said. "It means you're fully healthy. Your old life feels distant because this is your real life now." "I like this life," Ethan said. "I like our family." "Me too, buddy," Marcus said. "Me too." Ethan pulled out his sketchbook, something he still did when he wanted to process big emotions. He drew for a while, tongue sticking out in concentration, then held up the result. It was similar to the picture he'd drawn years ago, but more detailed. 3 people holding hands, but now there were 4 figures in the clouds. Grace and Sophia had been joined by Daniel, and in the corner, a small dog. "That's Rufus," Ethan explained. "They'd gotten the golden retriever a year ago. He died last month, but he's with them now. They're all watching over us, making sure we're okay." "They are," Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. "And we're more than okay. We're happy." Marcus looked at his family, this impossible constellation of people brought together by death and held together by love. His son alive and healthy with someone else's heart beating in his chest. His wife a woman who'd been a stranger on a plane and was now the center of his world. Their foundation helping hundreds of families find hope in their darkest moments. "You know what Grace used to say," Marcus said. "She'd say that love is the only thing that survives death, that everything else fades, but love just keeps going, changing form, finding new ways to exist." "She was right," Victoria said. "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "She was." Ethan leaned against Victoria and she wrapped her arm around him. Marcus took both their hands and they sat there in the quiet of their living room. This family that shouldn't exist, but somehow did. Somewhere Marcus liked to believe Grace was smiling. Not because her death had led to all of this, but because her life had. The connections she'd made, the promises she'd extracted, the love she'd spread it, had all come full circle. She'd saved Daniel's soul by sitting with him in the dark. She'd saved Victoria's heart by making her promise to care for others. She'd saved Ethan's life by setting in motion a chain of events that seemed impossible, but were really just the natural result of how she'd lived. Grace Reed had been a nurse who'd worked night shifts and made terrible pancakes and died too young. But her real legacy wasn't in how she died. It was in how she'd lived, building bridges between broken people, creating networks of care that outlived her. And now, 5 years after that midnight flight where a desperate father had saved a stranger's life, those bridges were still standing, still connecting people, still proving that love in all its forms was stronger than death. "I think we should start a scholarship program," Ethan said suddenly, "for kids who want to be doctors or nurses, in Mommy's name." Marcus and Victoria looked at each other, then at Ethan. "That's a beautiful idea," Victoria said. "The Grace Reed Memorial Scholarship," Marcus said, trying out the words. "I love it." "She'd want to help more people," Ethan said. "Even now, that's who she was." "That's who she is," Marcus corrected gently. "Present tense. Because everything we're doing because of her. She's not gone, buddy. She's just different now. She's in the foundation in our family, in every life we help save." Ethan nodded, satisfied with this answer. "Good. Then let's make sure she keeps saving people. Forever." And they did. The Grace Reed Memorial Scholarship launched the following year, funding medical education for students from low-income families. The first recipient was a young woman whose brother had been helped by the Hale Reed Foundation, who wanted to become a pediatric cardiac nurse. "I want to be like Grace Reed," she said in her acceptance speech. "I want to make connections between people, to help families in their darkest moments, to be the person someone remembers when they need hope." Marcus cried during that speech. Victoria held his hand. Ethan stood tall, proud of his mother's legacy. That night, walking home through the city streets, Marcus thought about that flight 5 years ago. He'd boarded that plane, broken, desperate, carrying $15,000 and no hope. He'd saved a stranger's life without knowing it would save his own. He'd learned that promises matter, that strangers can become family, that death isn't the end of love, just a transformation of it. He'd learned that sometimes the people we save end up saving us right back. And most importantly, he'd learned that Grace had been right about everything. Love was the only thing that survived death, and it survived by finding new hearts to beat in new hands, to hold new promises to keep. Victoria squeezed his hand. Ethan walked between them, healthy and strong and full of life. Their family strange and beautiful, and built from tragedy. "Thank you, Grace," Marcus whispered to the night sky. "Thank you for everything." And somewhere in the universe, in whatever form consciousness takes after death, he liked to believe she whispered back, "You're welcome. Now go live the life I knew you could have." So they did. So they